So that is how we encourage player movement in the systems. So as far as environmental, and this has a lot more to do with us as layout designers, first and foremost, and this is pretty easy, is the idea of breakable cover. So actually, you can see if you look at the this background image here of this image from the ship graveyard in Uncharted 4, we have these foreground objects, these pieces of wood right here that are actually breakable as the enemy sort of if you take cover behind them, the enemy will actually shoot at your cover itself and it'll degrade, and eventually you won't have that cover anymore. And so you have a certain amount of time before you're sort of forced to move from that position into another cover position, either another sort of breakable cover or another sort of more permanent cover. Second environmental sort of thing that helps you move you around is things in essentially environmental opportunities. So one of the main things I guess I think about is, like in The Last of Us, the idea of bricks. So bricks are objects that you find in the world, bricks and bottles, that is, that you can only carry one of at a time. And the reason for that is that once you throw one, you're out of it, and you have to move around the environment to find another one. They're not meant to sort of be stockpiled, because then you could sort of throw them one after another, and bricks have a number of advantages, one being that you can distract an enemy as you sort of charge on them, or if you're in stealth, you can throw it over in a corner and the enemy will go investigate, or you can use a brick as a opener for a melee, so you get a nice sort of bonus as you smash the brick into them. You can throw it at them as and then immediately charge up on them. So essentially these environmental opportunities that you find throughout the map keep you sort of moving and looking for these. And other games have other things, things like breakable barrels. You may want to get the enemy sort of closer to sort of breakable barrels in order for them to you be able to shoot them and blow them up, or various types of player weapons, things like setting an explosive trap, that sort of stuff, so that you can draw the enemy towards them. Anyway, and then the last way that we can use the environment to encourage player movement is that generally, as a rule, we want all positions the player could be taking cover in to be able to be flanked or uncovered by the enemy. So that way, no single cover position is perfect. So I was recently reviewing a layout. The designer was showing me that it featured this sort of elevated sniper position, and the designer sort of described that position with a lot of pride, saying it was the perfect sniper spot. That if the player can find it, they're rewarded with this awesome sort of sniper position. And so the trouble is, as far as my thinking, is that this designer was thinking with their player cap on, wanting to give the players this wonderful, rewarding experience of finding this really advantageous position. But we need to think like designers, and in that respect, as designers, we know that the reward of finding the perfect cover position is fleeting. It's not a sustainable feeling. Essentially you get there, you enjoy it, and then it's kind of gone, and it gets kind of boring because you're sort of just staying there and popping up and shooting, and there's not any more to it. And so what we want to do as designers and layout designers is to create the perfect sniper spot or perfect shooting position for this particular moment in time, because of the current battlefield conditions, the enemy placement, that sort of thing. But if things were to change, the player would then have to abandon it and move on to the next perfect sniper spot, and then another, and then another. And so each time feeling that reward of finding that new advantageous position. And so that is what is sustainable. throughout sort of the combat cycle. The designer needs to make a level that continues to be fun, and in order to do that, they need to be an advocate for the enemies. They need to think about how the enemies can counteract the player, and to be an advocate for the overall player experience and not for, I guess, the perfect player experience that they sort of want to play as they play this game. So let's get into talking about the environment of a battlefield.